Okay, so One Piece 1075 just came out. Luffy just defeated Kaido. There's a lot to talk about. You want to know what I'm going on about. And in order to do that, I need to explain this. This is a persistent problem I'm going to be talking about throughout all of One Piece. There's a lot of information about it that you don't know. And there's a lot of little minute details that are key in understanding both that crazy title as well as what we just saw. And in case there's any confusion, Luffy is defeating Kaido in the next episode. I don't know if they're putting Kaido's shitty backstory before he finishes him or after. I kind of forget. So first of all, in terms of how One Piece has this issue, whenever Luffy fights a villain, it's typically not the first time he's fighting them, right? With Crocodile, he lost 3 times. With Dofi, I believe he lost to him twice. But to the same effect, what makes those different is that a lot of the times when Luffy is fighting whoever the main villain is, enough time has passed that both the villain has recovered as well as Luffy has recovered, and it's a different fight, particularly with Crocodile, as well as with Dofi. You can add the caveat because Law was there, but that was the point of the arc. If you're going to complain about that, there's a lot of other things you can complain about. In terms of Luffy versus Kaido, you need to think about this from the perspective of Kaido, right? Kaido gets on the roof. He's fighting the 9 losers. I believe then he goes on to fight the 5 of them on the roof. And then he knocks them down. Then he's still fighting Law and Zoro, I believe, for a little bit on the roof. Then they get knocked down. Luffy then gets back up. He fights Luffy again fully. Gets knocked down. Fights Yamato. She loses. Gets knocked down. Luffy comes back up. He then kills Luffy. He kills him. Ends his life. Then he gets back up and fights him in Gear 5. And it's like, this is all one run for Kaido. This is all like one go at it for him. And at this point, he's fought. Luffy is powered up how many times? He's unlocked advanced conquerors in this fight. He's advanced. He's gonna power up to Gear 5. Like, what did Kaido do wrong? What does that mean? And what I'm gonna get into is, did Luffy really defeat Kaido? Yes. Can Luffy defeat Kaido in the future? Let's get into that. Now, we don't know a lot about Gear 5, right? Because it's not like Luffy fully pushed himself to his limits in order to defeat Kaido in Gear 5. 2, we don't really know about this whole like life drain thing, and it really seems like a little tool Oda has put in his toolbox that, yeah, I'm gonna whip this out whenever I want. If I want Luffy to win this fight right now, it's not gonna come up right now. If I want Luffy to lose this fight right now, all of a sudden Luffy is drained right now, right? Because unlike Gear 4 with that caveat with the 10 minutes, that was something that Oda kind of had to stick himself to and actually had to deal with, because to some regard we knew that, like, okay, enough time has passed, how is he still using it? With this though, there's a lot more caveats there, as well as with Kaido being at full strength. I mean, we've seen him fight at full strength and it seemed like he can roll through everybody, as well as the fact of, is this question actually going to be answered? Because this is One Piece. Pell survived the nuke, and I'm pretty sure Kaido can find a way to survive a volcano, because I don't think him dying of natural causes is the best way to go about it. If Luffy does fight Kaido full Gear 5, the only other thing we have to really scale that is from the manga, and I'm not going to get into it too much because spoilers, but basically, it's still nothing to go off of. And what's going on in the manga right now might be our only real basis for that. Is Oda going to hold himself to this like weird little rule he got going on? Maybe. A real question is, when Kaido is changing forms, is it like his stamina resetting? And honestly, as I'm getting more and more into this, power scaling of One Piece, like, who gives a fuck? Like, honestly, it's the craziest case. It's like Stan Lee says, whoever wins the fight because the author wants them to win the fight. When there is a shonen battle manga like this, it is something you have to scale. Like, how strong is Kaido really? And honestly, power scaling is obviously meant for other people, but when you're looking at all the data and everything that we have seen, it's safe to assume that that does not mean that Luffy defeating Kaido there does not mean that he can defeat him in the future. And some of the small details I was talking about, there's 3 main ones to know for Luffy going forward. For one, his creativity is definitely the only limitation, right? But the main line to consider with that in terms of his limitation and creativity is the fact that Kaido saying Haki defeats all. Means this is just like how Law can't just open a room and pop Kaido in it and kill him. So to the same effect, at what point can someone counter out Luffy like transforming their body with Haki? Is that a thing or not? Is that how that works? Does anyone even care if that's how that works? Is Oda even gonna write it in a way where like, oh, now all of a sudden you can't change all the properties of my body because my ornament Haki is so strong? Then you can go even further. And the second major detail about this, is Kaido really the strongest being in the whole world? Now, when Oda introduced Kaido, he was introduced as the strongest beast in the world. And this was always this really weird thing where it was like, yeah, he's the strongest beast in the world, so if he loses in Wano, is everyone else just gonna be weaker than Kaido? I think we all know know that Shanks or Dragon or Blackbeard is eventually going to become the strongest character in the world. So is that just like nonsense? Was he just capping? Do we just have to give him a break? Just like how Ace didn't know how to use hockey, do we just have to give him a break because that's what he said when he introduced Kaido? Honestly, we might. I think the validity of that scene is definitely interesting. Maybe Kaido was the best at a particular form of hockey, but at the same time, that doesn't really make sense. It seems like Shanks is the hockey guy. Is he the particular god of devil fruits? That really doesn't make sense. It seems like Dragon is the king of that. But that's a real question you have to ask yourself is Kaido really the strongest character in the series? Which I think all of us will say he's not, right? It just makes sense. And the third and most important detail is, of course, how affected does Gear 5 make Luffy in base? Does Luffy need to be in his full Gear 5 mode, awakened mode, where he's all white in order to use Gear 5 abilities? Now, I think some of you guys can help me in the comments here, because there's a lot of you that might have seen something that I haven't, and I've been wondering this whole time, and I feel like no one's brought it up. Now that his devil fruit's different, is it like because he's awakened, then he can just use his abilities, but when he awakens, is he then unawakened at a point? How does this work? Can he now do anything when he's in base? So thus far in the manga, I don't believe we've seen him do anything. We see him pop in and out of it like crazy, and then his clothes turn all white. Also, does his clothes need to turn all white, or is that just his way of indicating a fight? I think this is the biggest question with Gear 5 is, what is the actual ability here in terms of him in base? I don't think we've got a real question on that. And a little bonus one for number 4 here. In terms of Luffy, all looking like Elbaf is happening sooner than later, and it seems like Luffy's hockey is about to get a massive buff. And I do think that changes the landscape of this fight entirely, but at the same time, we just saw Luffy fight Kaido like 5 times in 150 episodes. Maybe it was 6, I lost count. I don't know if we're ever going to see this fight again, to be honest. I don't know if there's a need to. It would definitely be great, and it would definitely be a good time. So that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any criticisms, drop them down below. And just like we talked about a villain here, you gotta go check out my video on the trippiest villain in One Piece, Doflamingo. And don't forget, we're just getting started. We're gonna stay consistent, and I'll see you in the next video.